Start me up. Session 5, Healthy DNA continued. How do we nurture relationships with God and with other people? So, here are some DNA components that we want to make sure our groups have. First of all, we want to make sure that we are doing life together. Practically speaking, there needs to be someone who makes sure the group gets together at least every quarter to do something fun. You can call that role whatever you like, but someone needs to be responsible for nurturing the social life of the group. Some groups need more coaching on this than others. Hopefully, at some point, the group develops a natural instinct for doing this spontaneously. However, you cannot assume that it will start out that way. Some groups do not start out with an instinct for doing this part. I, Eddie Bromley, the author, have had groups that thought that studying the content of the Bible was enough to create relational bonds among its members. However, it is seldom the case that information heavy groups will develop strong relational ties. We have to be intentional about doing that. Number 2, make sure you have intentional safety nets. Hopefully a group will eventually develop instincts for doing this and a natural process for continuing this work. But one cannot assume that a group will start with the ability to do this at first. There needs to be someone who calls it to the attention of the group when someone is missing or going through a hard time. The group can then respond in helpful ways, but only if it has a good plan for doing so. Otherwise, it will be hit and miss. And when you miss, it will be at the expense of an important relationship. If a group is small, the same person who nurtures the social life of the group can also fill this role. But as a group grows, the roles will be needed to be differentiated and given to different people to oversee. Number 3, keep Jesus at the center of your community's life. At a surface level, a Christian community does not look different from any other human community. There are some aspects that do not differ from any other human community. The only real difference is that a Christian community is committed to staying connected to Jesus. The earliest followers of Jesus were not just developing close groups of friends. These close groups of friends were related by way of their relationship to Jesus. So your group will want to help each other develop strong prayer lives, maintaining habits of participating in public worship and partaking of Holy Communion, and daily disciplines of reading the Bible. Practically, each time you're together, you should start or end with a prayer for one another. You should do at least a brief biblical devotion. What about those who are not yet a part of your group? The number 4 thing that you want in your DNA, make sure there is room at the table. Just like the stories we read about in the Gospels, where there's an urgency to reach people, there should be an urgency or a desire within our group to bring others into fellowship. Remember, there is one letter difference between a close group and a closed group. Practically, each member of your class should think of themselves as a recruiter for your group. If you see someone who might benefit from being a part of your group, invite them. If you feel uncomfortable doing the inviting, have another person in the group help you. It is always easier for a group of people to do the inviting than for an individual. Also, when a new person shows up, work extra hard to include them in the conversation. Don't force them to talk, but invite their participation and leave room for them to talk. Even very close groups can stay aware of what it's like to be a new person. We can each work at being aware that it may be hard to be the new person in the class. If you're married, you might want to remember what it was like going to your spouse's family reunion for the first time. Everyone was in on the stories and the jokes, while you did not know who the other people were in the room. Can you remember how strange that experience was? Attending another person's family reunion for the first time is a little bit like going to a new church or new class for the first time. It's hard to be the new person. Number 5, what breaks your heart? Make sure that your group keeps the same focus that Jesus had and that he gave to his followers. Matthew 25 is our starting point for this. This is a question about engaging the world around us. Our broken world is filled with problems, but Jesus loves it and invites us to join in his redemptive work. We are not Jesus and we can't do everything, but we can do something. What is one problem that your class can do something about? Practically, each group should have some mission to which they are committed. We want to make sure our new groups are missionally engaged. This should include giving money, praying, and getting our hands dirty in service to God in the world that He loves so much. A group that sees itself as a missionary unit of the church will develop and maintain spiritual vitality. Being intentional about being missionally engaged will keep a group from becoming shallow or selfish. This should be one of the first conversations to take place after a group has experienced some cohesion. Even a small group of mostly new people can usually find a vital role to play in the community of faith and in God's mission in the world. Even if they just do something simple like sponsoring a kid in Haiti or Mexico, this commitment to God's mission will help keep this new group engaged in the work of God in the world. The next steps get us very close to revealing the way we go about identifying and training new members. And this brings us to number 6. What are you doing to help people discover and deploy their gifts? Groups, and especially groups of leaders, always need to be working to groom and train their replacements and to make themselves redundant. That kind of commitment is a hard thing to stay committed to, but it will eventually cost us something if we're intentionally in developing leaders. For example, if you're the guy who cooks the bacon at the pancake breakfast, you may not want to give that position up. You may really enjoy playing that part. But as long as you play that part, others are not going to be able to play a vital role. You, as the mature leader, can take somebody who's new and groom them and train them and get them incorporated and help them to become a vital part of the community. But of how we do that, um, it all depends on us, but doing that helps our group to live on past our influence. We do this by making sure that we're always training new leaders, always making ourselves redundant. This is how we make sure that the group can survive beyond our tenure. Questions for discussion. Which of these 6 ideas struck you as being most important? Which of these 6 ideas was hardest for you to understand and make a commitment to? In, in session 6, we will look at 2 different models for starting new groups.